Today on Artifactually Speaking, a relatively problematic material, at least in the modern age. I'm Brad Hafford, archaeologist at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm here at the ancient city of Nimrud, capital of the Assyrian Empire in the 9th and 8th centuries BCE. We are in our last week and on a break on a very hot day, and so I'm hiding in the shade of the reconstructed walls of the Ishtar temple courtyard. And I want to talk about a very interesting object we just found not far away, just outside the gate, right at the border into the Nimrud courtyard. It's an inlay it's a plaque with inlays. So we can see down here sort of incised or drilled in rosettes. They're circles, but they've got petals essentially. It's a flower motif and it goes pretty deeply in there. So it was intended to take a colored inlay. It's a well-shaped flat plaque broken at the top. Nothing on here. Maybe something was painted, not really sure. I assume it was on a wall or maybe in a piece of furniture. The big question is the material. It is rather dense and it feels a bit like stone, but when you can just look at the actual surface, what it is ivory. And of course today, ivory very problematic, and there's a ban on using it, trading it, because it leads to poaching elephants. There's no reason to be killing these elephants. These are noble creatures. They should not be killed, especially not just for their tusks. So it's great that it is banned. I think we need to protect the elephants.
The CITES agreement that protects endangered species was ratified by many countries in the 1970s. African elephants were added to it in 1989, banning the sale of ivory objects made after 1947. By making ivory difficult to sell, it has decreased the poaching of elephants, though sadly, some poaching and illegal trade still occurs. Regardless, CITES has been more successful at controlling ivory trade than the UNESCO Treaty on Cultural Property, also ratified in the 1970s, has been at controlling trade in ancient objects. The treaty blocks the sale of cultural property, including artifacts collected after 1970, but it has had a difficult time of de-incentivizing the looting of archaeological sites. ISIS tapped into the illegal market, looting archaeological sites in Iraq on a large scale. They used the proceeds to help fund their terrorist activities, with estimated income from antiquities second only to that from oil.
In history, though, we want to study how people used things, and so we do need to think about this material. How did they get hold of it? You know, in a time when it was, well, the world was expanding, I guess, the known world, and the Assyrians had conquered a whole lot. But the idea that they got giant elephant tusks all the way up here and made things out of it, well, and they made a whole lot of them. Often they were importing ivories from Phoenicia, so it was coming from the Mediterranean coast, and elephant ivory probably coming from Africa.
Many Phoenician-style carved ivories have been found at Nimrud, especially in the bottom of deep wells in the Northwest Palace. Many of them were cleaned and photographed by the famous mystery writer Agatha Christie, who worked at Nimrud with her archaeologist husband Max Malawan in the 1950s.
Well, this is interesting for a few reasons. I do wish there was higher decoration that we could look at, but the way that it has been manipulated, how it has been worked, is fascinating to me, because inside these rosettes we can see just how they made them, and you'll see that the hole goes all the way through. Now that wasn't really intentional. What they were doing was drilling individually with a small drill. We can see the width of it, just 3 millimeters, 2 or 3 millimeters, and they would drill down in there and then snap it off. So it was a hollow drill bit. How do I know? Well, in the depths of this, we can see the raised portions where they would snap it off. And it's rather rough inside that inlay insert, because it didn't matter. That wasn't going to be seen. So they didn't finish it off and get rid of the evidence of the way the tool worked. So they drilled down in there, probably using an abrasive as well, because that's what allows it to cut. Especially when you've got something, a hollow drill bit, It's fairly thin, and you'll need to snap that material out of there. So you drill down, break it out, and then you drill again, and you can see that that's what makes the petals of the rosette. But they did it in the center as well. You can see still individual drill marks inside. And in the case of this one, they went a little too deep, and they broke all the way through to the back of the plaque. It's an accident, but it didn't really matter because it was going to be covered up by the inlay. And what did they inlay? Well, it could have been a number of things. Colored stones, but I think more likely in this period it's going to be glass or faience. They were using both. They had made true glass by now, and we have found some examples of it, but we also found a lot of faience or frit, the Egyptian blue that I've talked about before. So that would be perfect for inlaying into these, and it would be very attractive as a very stark white and then perhaps blue rosettes of some sort. The rosette, especially an 8-pointed rosette, is particularly associated with Ishtar, and we were here in the Ishtar temple coming from the Ninurta court, so these could have been marking the difference, the passage between the two. So I think it's a really interesting object. I do wish I understood more about what was the rest of it. And I don't like ivory, but this is more than 2,500 years old. So some people have said, don't ever look at ivory, don't talk about it, but we need to think about how people used things. We don't do it today. We shouldn't make anything out of ivory. There's no need to. But they did it in the past, and I think studying the way they did things in the past still teaches us something. Well, I hope you enjoyed investigating this plaque with me, and I hope you'll join me again next time on Artifactually Speaking.